Good morning, everybody. This is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship, and welcome to the Ranch Road. Um, Today, we're going to talk about three things that are on your horse's mind. Okay. Actually, it's three things that are on our mind too, whether or not we know it or not, whether or not we acknowledge it or not. But it's these three things that are on our minds all the time, and again, whether or not we acknowledge it, we're not that we're aware of it, but it's there. Okay. The first and foremost, especially to do with our horses, but it's very much to do with us as well. It basically takes care of everything that we do goes back to this one key word, and it's survival. Survival is on your horse's mind 24/7. They can't help it. It's instinctual to them. They just want to survive. They want to survive the moment. They want to survive so they can pass on their genetics to the next generation. They want to pass on so that they can live, forever, so to speak. So everything that they do is all about survival. That's especially so if we're not involved, but it's also there 24/7, even when we're involved. Now, what does that mean to you, though? What does it mean to us as horse owners, and in my case, horse trainer? What it means to me is that if I know that this horse has survival on its mind, then it goes right back to understanding horses for what they are. And among other things, they're a great big animal with a little bitty fuel tank. In other words, they've got a little bitty stomach, but yet they're a really big animal, which means that they have to eat and graze a whole heck of a lot. Or like in our case, when we've got our horses domesticated, our horses are eating more of a condensed feed so that hopefully that energy will be sustained over time. But nonetheless, it's so deeply ingrained in them and programmed in them that what they must do is they must continually be putting energy into that fuel tank. Now, what does that have to do with survival? What does that have to do with us? If we know that old quote that says, make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult, that applies so much into this situation. Why? Because it threatens the horse survival. If you can threaten the horse's efficiency, and I don't mean threaten it in a negative way, but in other words, if you can challenge the horse's efficiency, then they will try to find a more efficient way to do anything that we ask them to do. Anything that we ask them to do. If they understand that you're going to keep asking until they do whatever it is you want them to do, then they're going to find the most efficient way to do it. Now, that puts the burden back on us, though, you see, to make what we want from them appear to be easier than the alternatives. And in my case, a lot of times I just make it easier no matter what. In other words, if I want a horse to lope and he lopes a little bit too fast, I don't try to fight him, to try to pull back on him and make it to where I'm actually challenging him to push into a bridle, which creates another problem. What I do is I just simply let the horse lope too fast, except that I'll begin to control that forward motion into, say, like a smaller circle, or I'll combine that with a whole bunch of stops and turnarounds and let him lope again until eventually he realizes, why am I loping so fast? It consumes too much energy and I'm not getting anywhere in a hurry. So after a while, the horse will learn to slow down and be more efficient in that task. That's just one example, and there's literally thousands of other things, maybe more than that, that we could do. The other thing I want you guys to touch on, and I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but another thing I want to touch on for you guys is this. We mentioned survival. That is so key. That is probably the number one thing we have to keep in mind as horsemen, is that horse has that survival thing going on in their brain 24/7. Another one is purpose. In our domestic world, their purpose gets kind of jacked around, doesn't it? Because in their world, their purpose is simply just to eat and procreate. But and once we bring them into our domestic world and we start doing different things with them, horses begin to wonder, why are we loping circles so much? What is that? Why are we doing that? In other words, they're questioning the purpose. What is that purpose? So whenever we're doing something with our horses and we can direct that training activity into a purpose, then horses begin to perform better. They begin to understand their jobs better. Then they understand why we're doing these darn little drills, because to them they're not drills. It's probably just annoyances, but nonetheless they do better once we begin to establish the application of those drills and exercises toward a purpose. The last thing that's on the horse's mind is the people. Because again, we've got them domesticated, we control their purposes and we control their survival to a certain degree. So yes, they're concerned about us. Um, for example, we mentioned earlier about that fuel tank getting low, and that fuel tank gets low. They can't just sometimes just go off and just graze more, or maybe they're grazing, but maybe they're not grazing on good quality pasture. So they're wondering, where's the other stuff coming from? Where is that? And then they begin to associate where their people are. In other words, where's that person that comes and feeds me? Where's that person that comes and waters me? Here's that darn person again, annoying me again, threatening my survival, and I don't know what I'm doing. In other words, I have no purpose. So you see, the three things that are always on a horse's mind, and again, like I said before, always on our mind as well, is survival, purpose, and people. Hope that little tidbit there helps you guys. Appreciate you guys as always for joining me each morning on the Ranch Road. And until next time, this is Van Hargis with Van Hargis Horsemanship.